Chapter 1. The Setting. In the deserts of North Africa, during the scorching summer of 1942, a critical chapter of World War II was unfolding. The British Eighth Army, under the command of General Bernard Montgomery, faced off against the formidable Axis forces led by Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, also known as the Desert Fox. The battleground was a barren expanse near the Egyptian town of El Alamein, where the Allied forces aimed to halt Rommel's advance and protect the vital Suez Canal. Chapter 2. Rommel's Blitzkrieg. Rommel's Afrika Korps had been relentless, advancing across the desert with lightning speed. Their conquest of Tobruk had sent shockwaves through the Allied ranks. The Axis forces seemed unstoppable, threatening to gain control of the entire North African theater. But, as they neared El Alamein, Montgomery and the British Eighth Army were determined to make a stand. Chapter 3. The Allied Defensive Line. Montgomery was well aware of the importance of El Alamein. He meticulously planned a defensive strategy, using the natural terrain and a network of mines and trenches to create a formidable line. The Allies dug in, building defensive fortifications and fortifying their positions, determined to hold their ground. Chapter 4. The battle begins. In the late evening of October 23, 1942, Operation Lightfoot began. British artillery lit up the night sky, heralding the start of a massive artillery barrage. Under the cover of darkness and smoke screens, infantry and tanks moved forward, engaging the Axis forces. The battle raged for days as both sides fought fiercely for control of the desert. Chapter 5. Montgomery's Tactics. Montgomery's approach was methodical. He used his superior resources and intelligence to wear down the Axis forces. He employed the tactic of hugging the enemy to keep Rommel's forces engaged, preventing them from breaking through the Allied lines. The battle became a grueling war of attrition. Chapter 6. The Battle of the Minefields. One of the pivotal moments of the battle was the Battle of the Minefields. Montgomery had laid extensive minefields, and when Rommel's forces attempted to breach them, they suffered heavy losses. This setback weakened the Axis forces significantly. Chapter 7. The Breakthrough. After months of intense fighting and attrition, the tide began to turn in favor of the Allies. Montgomery launched a massive offensive on the night of November 2nd, breaking through the Axis lines. The Australian and New Zealand troops played a crucial role in this decisive push. Chapter 8. Rommel's Retreat. With his supply lines stretched thin and his forces exhausted, Rommel had no choice but to order a retreat. The British Eighth Army pursued the retreating Axis forces, pushing them back across the desert. Chapter 9. Victory at El Alamein. On November 4, 1942, the Battle of El Alamein officially ended in victory for the Allies. Montgomery's strategy and the determination of his troops had turned the tide of the North African campaign. The Axis forces were in retreat, and the threat to the Suez Canal was averted. Chapter 10. Impact and Aftermath. The Battle of El Alamein was a turning point in World War II. It marked the first major Allied victory in the Western Desert, boosting morale and turning the tide of the war in North Africa. It also set the stage for the Allied invasion of Italy and the eventual liberation of Europe from Nazi occupation. The Battle of El Alamein remains a symbol of determination, strategic brilliance, and the courage of the soldiers who fought in the harsh desert terrain. It demonstrated the importance of leadership, planning, and the resilience of the Allied forces in the face of adversity.